people new to me, if they haven't had a compound in their system, okay, let's do a base test, and then let's try this new compound and see how you react to it. And then let's maybe next cycle we'll try something else out and see how you react to it until we build a repertoire of compounds of like, this is in a good category, this might be in the not so good category, this is in a, you know what, it makes me have, high blood pressure, it makes me feel lethargic, this is in the bad category is what I'm saying. So that's kind of how I look at things. I like to build a repertoire, get an idea of how they work with people. So then we have a pretty good idea leading into, say the cycle before contest prep, like what's going to be our best thing before we, take a health phase and then go into your contest cycle.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to Blood, Sweat, and Gear with coaches Skip Hill, Andrew Berry, and myself, Scott McNally. All of our programming is brought to you by you, the people of Patreon. Thank you guys for your support. And hey, if you're new here, let me encourage you to subscribe and hit the bell. We have several bodybuilding podcasts each week. We'd love to have you along for all of them. We've got a bunch of listener questions, and that's what we basically do here. The three of us have been coaching for a long time. We're going to freely share our education with you. Hopefully, you guys can reach your goals faster. That's the goal here. I'm going to start out with this one here from Instagram. Generally, we take our questions off of YouTube. You guys can comment below, plus comments, likes, all that stuff. It helps to boost our programming in the algorithm. So he says, at what point do you consider new compounds for a rookie 1 to 2 years experience with PEDs? So my guess is maybe he started with like a basic, maybe test only, maybe he's doing the test masked, something like that. Basically, he's using some sort of a foundation. You guys can go at it. What do you think? When is it time to start branching out and adding a new compound to the mix?
Yesterday.
First, yeah, it was kind of good. Like 2 years to start another compound. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Like
That's
he has some major patience. Yeah. But I was gonna say, well, how's his progress going? Is everything still? Is he still improving? Is he doing better? Has he manipulated his diet and he's pushing his food up and he's growing? I mean, I hate to say it, I wouldn't be able to do this, but I would keep doing what you're doing if things are going great. Now, I did caveat that, like, I wouldn't do this because as soon as I had access to gear, it was like, I want to try this and I want to try that. And I want to take it all at the same time, and orals and, injectables, everything, right? But I think, like I said, if things are going well, keep doing what you're doing. But when things start to not go so well, that's maybe when you want to add another compound. And by not going so well, I mean you're not improving at the same rate that you were before. And caveat that with, usually your first real cycle where you're really eating, you're really training hard, and you're putting everything into it, that's going to be one of your best growth phases ever. So I wouldn't necessarily base subsequent cycles on that first one, because law of diminishing returns, it is real. But I would leave it at that. What do you think, Skip?
I don't disagree. I think, too, that it should be emphasized that, like you said, there needs to be a little bit of time to evaluate that things aren't going well. If your bench isn't going up for 3 weeks, that does not mean that you're not progressing. And I think we have a bad habit in this industry of, well, I need to change something, so gear is the number one go-to. And I understand why, but at the same time, I think you need to look at your food first. Arguably, your training is a very, very close second. So it could be argued that the training is first, too, because a lot of this comes down to recovery, too. So are you training too frequently? Are you training too hard? Are you recovering? If you are recovering, do you need more calories? If you're taking in more calories and you're still not progressing, and it's been a few months, I don't want to say you've been off cycle, but if you have started and you're in your first couple of years, there should be cycling going on. There shouldn't be this long period of time where you're just on. That's a little bit more a little further down the line. So, I don't think there's any hard and fast rules. I think you guys would agree with that. It's not like, well, you've done one compound, now it's time to do 2. Now you've done 2, now it's time to do 3. Another important component isn't even really the compounds, it's the dosing. Because you could run the first cycle at a higher dose for your second cycle. You could, if you started off at 500 testosterone, you could add, 300 or 400 deca. Some people will say that's high. I don't think that's high. Everything is relative. It depends on comfort level, which I think is a big deal too. When it comes down to dosing and using compounds, to me, that's a very personal decision. With my clients, I like to make sure to ensure that they are 100% on board and comfortable with the gear protocol. Because I don't want to advise on something and have somebody do something that they either, would have regrets later on, or think that they're putting their health in jeopardy or anything. So I consider it kind of a team effort when you're figuring out what the gear use is going to be, what the dosing is going to be, and what the compounds are going to be. Is it safe to say that a lot of people do want to see those new compounds, though? They want to see how they react to, Primabol. I want to do Primabol now, or I want to do Anadrol, or I want to try Tren. Tren is usually the go-to.
Scott Stevenson's trolling us in the background here.
I think he's trolling us from trolling someone else, right? Or from other people trolling. The troll continues.
The troll, it's the full spectrum of trolling.
The troll telephone game, I guess.
Yeah. So let's say the goal is to continue growing. What if you change goals? I mean, here's a thought: is I feel like, well, what if you were on your third cycle, you've run like test only, okay, and you're making progress, and maybe like test in like some Winstrol at the end or something of a cut. Now I'm going to cut. I'm going to add something else in to harden up more at the end.
Yeah, I wouldn't do that. But
no, you wouldn't add in like a DHT.
No, I would definitely add in. I guess what I'm saying is I don't like to go to something like a Winstrol and then label it a cut. I understand you're using, terms and labels so that we all understand what we're talking about. Don't get me wrong. But I think in doing that, if that were to be done, that just kind of reinforces that there are compounds that are cutting drugs and compounds that aren't. I don't know.
You don't want to.
What's that?
You don't want to. Well, I would label Winstrol as a cutting drug.
Well, let's put it this way. Let's
used go during a cut, but I don't want to give the. Well, go ahead.
Into a cut. Would you run DECA or into like a show?
Like a contest prep?
For a contest prep.
Right. Okay. I agree with that completely.
I get what you're saying, though. You're saying like that the drug does that the drug's going to make you leaner and
right. And that's why I don't want to reinforce that, because a lot of people think that. The other thing is we're talking about someone who's only been training or only done a couple cycles. So I'm assuming, and this may not be accurate, but that they're not competitive yet. So they're just trying to grow and build muscle. To me, I wouldn't throw in Winstrol. I wouldn't be as apt to throw in Winstrol. I would want to throw in something like an NPP or a Primabol.
If they were, yeah. Well, in a different scenario, if my goal was like, hey, I did 2 cycles and now I want to tear it all down, Skip, because I'm so big, I want to show it all off and go to the beach this summer and be peeled for my vacation. I want to be
and not hold as much water and not convert to estrogen as much. Yeah, absolutely. I try to steer the newer people away from orals if I can, because I just don't think that those gains are, I don't know, as solid.
It's more cosmetic is what you're probably thinking, right?
What's that?
They are
more of a cosmetic versus an actual anabolism effect.
Yeah,
I would agree with that. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, there's a million different ways we can go with this, right? Because you presented a couple of scenarios, Scott. I was just thinking of it as your average gym bro who's, all right, I've gone into bodybuilding. I've learned I need to eat 5 to 6 high protein meals a day, and I need to train hard at least 4, maybe 5 days a week, and I need to take certain sets to failure. So they really started their education as a bodybuilder. And I started my first cycle, say 500 milligrams of testosterone, and maybe my second cycle I bumped it up to 750. And then what do I do now? Because progress is drastically slowing down compared to my first 2 cycles leading up to this point. Right? Is that kind of
that's a great one. Yeah, that's a great scenario.
That we kind of can assume that this person was asking about. Yeah. So then I think that's the appropriate time to add another compound in, because like I said, you've started with a certain amount of testosterone, you bumped your testosterone back up for a second cycle. So now I think you've experienced what you can do by titrating your testosterone up. Now let's see where a second compound can help you out. Now, as to what that compound might be, I mean, roll the dice, I guess, but
yeah.
You could go a lot of different directions. Sometimes it comes down to the advice that you're getting from your coach or your friends, which honestly, I mean, I don't think that's the worst thing, because you don't know how a drug reacts in your system until you try it. And I actually like, especially with like not newer, but people new to me, if they haven't had a compound in their system, okay, let's do a base test and then let's try this new compound and see how you react to it. and then let's maybe next cycle we'll try something else out and see how you react to it, until we build a repertoire of compounds of like, this is in a good category, this might be in the not so good category, this is in a, you know what, it makes me have, you know, high blood pressure, it makes me feel lethargic, this is in the bad category is what I'm saying. So that's kind of how I look at things. You know, I like to build a repertoire of drugs, get an idea of how they work with people, so then we have a pretty good idea leading into, you know, say the cycle before contest prep, like what's going to be our best thing before we, you know, take a health phase and then go into your contest cycle.
Yeah. And I think it is probably safe to say that if you're able to maintain without getting like out of shape, that you could probably plan to keep growing for a really long time. You know what I mean? Like, you know, I paint that scenario because I do see that, you know, somebody's like, hey, you know, I've been doing this for, I guess, a couple of years. That's enough time. You should be able to have some muscle by then if you wanted to do some sort of like summer vacation cut, something like that. Sure. But for the vast majority of us, it's like we just need to keep growing. I don't care how big you are.
You know what's funny is like there's so many people that, and I think it's part of the generation, the Instagram age, you know, to call it something, where if they haven't built one of these dream physiques within their first 3 years, they're ready to just like pack it in and like, I'm never going to be nothing in this sport, when they don't realize that like most of the guys that like all of us, like it took 10, 15, 50 for Skip to build a physique. I'm just to build a physique.
50 years.
Before, when he was in utero, he started using PEDs and training hard in his mother's stomach. No, but you know what I mean? Like I think I like my buddy John Meadows, right? Like, I mean, the amount of muscle, Scott Stevenson, who's with us, you know, it took years because we're more on the average side of genetics, and we had to put the work in, had to put the calories in, had to use the drugs over time. Some of these guys, they're lucky. But I just see a lot of these younger guys where like, if I'm not going to be an Olympian in the first 4 years, why is this even worth it? And this is a direct conversation I've had with someone in the last week. And it's like, the Olympia, bro? Like, I've never in my mind thought like I'm going to make the Olympia. You know what I mean?
I did when I was 14, but I was 14.
From an imaginative standpoint. But like this guy,
delusional, basically, if I'm being honest.
I mean, this person's not delusional that they will be an Olympian someday. But
I was talking about me. I don't want to offend the person if they're listening, because I'm talking about me.
But in the same token, it's offensive to guys like us that have put 10, 15, 20 years in the gym.
It's offensive to the Olympians, too. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I just think it's cute when someone will say, they'll come to me as a client and they'll be like, these are my goals. I want to be like 200, 210, shredded. I'm like, oh, okay. So basically where I am, and it took me 40 years.
I mean, they're 180 in fat right now, right?
Yeah. It's the most bizarre thing. I'm like, oh, yeah, we can definitely. And they'll ask me, you know, how long do you think that'll take? I'm like, I can't even put a timetable on that. And I will usually use the fact that I have average at best genetics, and I have been training for 40 years, and I will step on stage as a light heavy. Yep. So, I mean, I'm basically saying, are you serious? Like, are you kidding? And I won't bullshit anybody. I don't think you guys do either. But there are a lot of coaches out there, they just pay me. I'll tell you whatever you need to tell me, or whatever I need to tell you to get you to pay me, and then we'll deal with the ramifications later.
Yeah, that's the thing, man. I wouldn't want to do that, because I know that like one day that truth has to be figured out.
It's just so unethical. It's borderline pathetic. You need a client that bad. Oh, man.
Yeah, 5 spaces open.
I agree with you.
Yeah, 5 spaces, exactly.
At a discount.
All right. Let's see what else we have here. I hope that helps him. It's going to be different for everyone too, isn't it?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right. How about, let's see here. You guys find most people end up fat on a 0.5 to 1 pound gain per week over 20 weeks, ? So I guess he's asking if you were to focus on gaining 0.5 pounds to 1 pound per week over the course of 20 weeks, would you assume that person would be fat after 20 weeks? They'd be 20 pounds up.
Yeah, most people would be gaining body fat at that point, but there's a lot of variables in there too. If I gain 20 pounds over 20
he said maybe
weeks,
it's my crappy genetics. So no, it's not. It's like it's not. He's not terrible genetics then, just because he gets fat, right? Like,
but are you just perma eating that whole time, or are you making sure you're insulin sensitive? Are you pulling back at times where you need? Like, everyone thinks that like off season is going to be just this like this magical
linear
progression. Yeah, and it's like really, it's like this, and then okay, now we got to pull back for 3 weeks, and then you have some gut issues, so now we got to pull your food a little bit more. Okay, now you're feeling good again. Now we're back on track. It's just
stress is at work, stress is relationship, travel. You're not sleeping as well. There's just so many variables that sometimes you don't even just pull back consciously. You're just not progressing that well for 2 or 3 weeks. Maybe you're borderline overtrained. There are just a ton of variables in there.
Or what about this? Your weight stays within 0.3 pounds for a month. But like as a coach, and they're discouraged, but as a coach, you're like, okay, I can see more quad depth and quad lines. And I can see
you're recomping.
Exactly. Like, so
I'll take that.
The scale is not the only indicator. And the same thing we say to women when they're trying to lose body fat, right? Yeah. Scale is not the only indicator we're looking for here.
And like you said, Skip, also with fat loss, it's not a straight line. I had to have that conversation with somebody the other week, or just this past week, and he's new. We just started a few weeks ago, and he had a good amount of body fat to lose. So we ended up cruising. We like dropped a chunk, right? And then it's 3 pounds, and then it's 3 pounds, and then it's 3 pounds, and then it's 1 pound. And he sounded very down at his check-in. He's like, I did everything right.
Yeah.
You know?
Of course you did.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's why you're continuing to progress. Don't pay as much attention to the scale.
Yeah.
I think though it does give people a some assuredness when they have that attitude, or not that mindset of like, what the hell went wrong? I'm only down 1 pound this week, but we're like, okay, cool. Like, let's keep doing what we're doing, or let's do something. It's we're very level headed about it. So they're like, okay, he's not freaked out by this.
Right. Yeah.
So why am I freaking out? You know what I mean? Because obviously in any diet phase, we all expect our clients at some point to not drop continually. It's very rare that someone's like 1.5, 2 pounds down every single day, every single week, all the way down to the week of the show. That is so rare that I can't think of it ever happening in my experience.
Well, and honestly, I think it should slow down.
Exactly.
I know myself, the closer I'm getting, I don't want a 2.5. I'll start cutting cardio at the end of the week. I'm like, I'm down 1.5 pounds. I'm good. I'm cutting my workload back. I'm going to make sure I'm recovering, because you continue to lose at that rate. Trust me, it's going to start to eat like Pac-Man eats dots.
All right. What are your thoughts on Metformin during refeeds?
Nope.
Yeah, I agree.
Why? Metformin's not insulin. Metformin, it doesn't work that way. And I don't like adding extra calories in when someone is using Metformin, because I think you'll experience the nasty side effect of gastric dumping.
It's going to be even worse. So let's just real quick, instead of Metformin, insulin for loading? Yes.
Absolutely.
I'll take it.
There you go.
Not in every case, but if it made sense, absolutely. I'd pick that over Metformin any day of the week.
That's what I'm saying. If you had to pick between the two, insulin all day long.
Yep.
Yeah.
Not all day long, but I'm saying.
Well, if you're skip loading.
Then
maybe it is all day.
Loading all day long. Yeah, good point.
Yeah.
I remember I did a skip load. This is like 14 years ago, when I'd read all your papers on it, Skip, and I think I woke up that morning, I was 224, and by the end of the night, and this is when I was 18 or whatever weeks into a diet, and at the end of the day, I was like 247. And I was using insulin. It looked awesome, though. Like, I mean, a little watery, obviously. But
sure. Next morning, you probably looked even better because you were drier and still holding fullness.
The following, it was a Saturday, because I remember, and I also spent the whole day at the beach just eating and just relaxing and just having
probably drying out, on the beach.
It wasn't really drying. It wasn't drying as much as I should have. But I mean, it was still a great look. Don't get me wrong. But come Monday, because I needed a day of, because I always did a very close to zero carb day after a skip load, right?
Yeah, okay.
So protein, fats, got a little extra cardio in, water came right off, and I think I finished, Monday I was like 232. So I lost like 16 pounds of water overnight, and that was like the look.
Yeah. Nice.
Yep.
I'm curious to know what your guys' cruise doses or sports TRT doses are. Love the show, gents.
I'm a 200 mg guy. Now that's not counting growth, but I mean, as far as testosterone, I'm going to run at 200 mg. I actually hold quite well, even with my older age. I'll continue to progress and grow. Let me just say this real quick too, because I think this is important. Anytime someone transitions into a cruise phase, they have, and especially if they're not used to it, they tend to think that the first couple of weeks they're just going to lose all the size, the strength is going to go down, and everything. You should continue to progress. Sometimes 5, 6, 7 weeks, just damn close to when you were on cycle. So it's really this kind of a misnomer that you are going to lose all this size eventually at 6, 8, 10 weeks, 12 weeks. Yes, you are going to see a difference, but TRT dosing will hold a lot of cycle gains. And if you were to just come off and quit cycling, and a lot of us did, I did for 5 years. I held a lot of my size. I'm not a big guy anyway, but I held a lot of my size for the vast majority of those 5 years. You have to change your training because you're not going to recover as well versus when you're out. So you have to make sure you're not overtrained, that your training isn't as frequent. I still think it should be just as intense. I always say the 3 factors: intensity, frequency, and volume. Keep the intensity the same. Adjust the other 2. Intensity is very black and white. You're either going balls out or you're not. And then you can change and you can manipulate the volume and the frequency so easily. And you don't have to train you don't have to change then your method or your style of training. Just the volume and the frequency.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can't disagree with that.
I would agree with that.
In terms of dosing, I've been all over the place. It depends on how focused I am. I mean, this last time I was cruising, I didn't train for 2 months. So I was literally taking between 15 and 20 milligrams of testosterone every other day. And that was it. So what does that work out to?
Under 140. Yeah.
Yeah. So somewhere between 100 and 140
milligrams. Oh, you said every other day?
Yeah. So
you're like 20 every other day? That's like
if I remember,
80, 70, something like that.
That's if I remember to take it, I mean, I was in a funk, And I also was, working on my house too. So that was my main focus. I had to put bodybuilding on the back burner, but typically, again, like I'm so bad because if I'm not in competition mode or dedicated bodybuilding mode, my mind is always on clients and then trying to relax at the end of the night. And if I'm already in bed relaxing, I'm not going to get up and take a shot if I forgot to. So, and I might forget the next day too. So it might be as much as 300 milligrams a week, or it might fall back down to like 150 a week. So it's hard for me to say, but I'm going to try to be more focused about it now. I know it's horrible advice from, the coaches, tons of athletes, but you also got to keep in mind when I was in it, like the way Skip is right now, everything was documented. Everything was meticulous.
Nailed in.
Diet is always meticulous. So my training is always meticulous. My diet, I feel like those are the more important things. Gear for me has always been like, it's great, but growth hormone, I'll use as much as I can at any time.
Yeah, but I don't think it's a bad thing to say. I think it's being transparent. Yeah. People need to understand that if they train, because I've been accused of this by people who've trained 4 or 5 years. Oh, you're not passionate. You can't even bring that comment to me because I've been training for 40 years. You're going to have those times where there are other things in your life that are going to take priority. Well, to a normal person, whether it be family or stressors in life or things that are just going on, that you literally have to put bodybuilding aside to be able to deal with it and function. And just like you're saying, you're building your house and you were focused on your clients. That's called having your priorities in line. I don't see that a problem. And there was no doubt you were going to come back. And people will be like, well, what if I don't come back? You don't come back, then you don't love it. Then you're not passionate about it. Then you have an argument. But if I'm going to come back, I just wipe it for 16 weeks and eat whatever, if I want, when I want, and don't go anywhere near a gym. Don't even think of coming at me.
You'd almost say that it probably reignites that fire too, because like when I got back down here, I immediately started gearing. And obviously I was starting training with Nate 5 days a week, and we really started hitting it off again. And it was like, didn't skip a beat. So,
At this point, I'll do like 125-ish, somewhere in there. If I'm really lucky, it will be every 7 days. If I'm not lucky, it'll be 125 a week. If I be completely honest, I might get that one shot and be like, oh shit, it's been a week since I took that shot. But I'll tell you this. So I've been trying to renegotiate bodybuilding since I had gotten sick in 2021. And I think I'm kind of like finally into a groove with like, okay, this is what I can do. And this isn't too much for me. And I think I'm feeling pretty good with it. Like I'm doing all right. Before that though, cruise wise, I would do, my cruises were high, like at least 300 test was a cruise, maybe 100 mast in there, something like that. And my thought was that I got to a point where I probably didn't drop below 300 test for, I would say, a few years. Okay.
Gotcha.
And that would be like a cruise dose. And I felt like if I were to go lower than that I may like sacrifice muscle or something. Like I didn't really, it's not that I actually had that conversation ever, but it was kind of like just and I'm being completely transparent here. It was something that kind of was like in the back of my head, like I can't go lower than that. I need to at least stay on this much, and maybe I'll keep growing even better in the process because I've got this extra. And really looking back at that, that's also when I had to do regular therapeutic phlebotomy. Surprise, surprise, my hematocrit was through the roof all the time. You know what I mean? Yeah. My cholesterol was still my HDL was still at 25, like it just lived at 25. And now my cholesterol's in the 40s, which is awesome. Hematocrit is still high, but that's a different scenario. It has to do with my lungs. Yeah. And not getting as much oxygen makes your blood thicker, high hematocrit, just like having a CPAP and stuff. So different scenario. Yeah. But I really, after going through like the high cruise doses, it took me going through that to be able to now say that was absolutely ridiculous, that I didn't need to maintain a cruise dose of 300, 400 milligrams in order to maintain muscle, because I was able to maintain on way less, like even like less of everything, less food, less training, and way less, test. And that my muscle mass stayed the same after having gotten sick for like the next year and a half. It didn't go anywhere. Like it just didn't go anywhere. And I'm still today, that was at like 230s. Okay. And now I hold at like 220. If I don't try to lose fat, I'll stay at 220, 215, 220. So it's like my body just sits at 215, 220 now, no matter what I do. So like that fear of losing muscle, sure, it's not as like full and round and all that, but I guarantee you if I were to push the test back up, it would all come back in no time,
Yeah.
I can throw a bone to the listeners real quick and be honest about my cycling. I cycle roughly 7 months out of the year, and then I go to about 3 months of TRT, and then I'm off for about 2 months.
Completely. Off everything?
And then I go back. Yeah, I come completely off. The reason that I do that is, and it could be argued that it doesn't help much, but I have to, dropping down to TRT does not reset my blood markers. It brings them down, but you would think, oh, you got this big dose here during cycle and you got this little dose during TRT. Your numbers are going to drop substantially. They don't. They drop about maybe half. To get them to completely reset, I need 8 weeks, and it's like clockwork. 8 weeks off after TRT will put everything well into range. Sometimes it's 6 weeks, but by 8 weeks, everything is in range. Now I go right back on cycle, usually, and this usually happens January through July or August, and then I do it into the fall. And the reason, I'm being honest, number one, I'm in Florida. I'm outside all the time. I want to be in great shape. I'm older, and that's just how I do it. So, because I'm being honest, if anybody responds with anything like that stupid, just remind yourself that it's not your fucking business. I'm just being honest, letting you know what I do. Not you guys, but the listeners. And you don't.
But us too. If we had a problem with you, I would assume.
Yeah. You may not like it. You may not want to do it. I'm not advocating for it. I'm just being honest, and that's how I do it.
Well, let me ask you this: have you tried going to something like I was doing, like 10 to 20 milligrams a test, like every other day?
Yeah, the only thing you did is to help my estrogen a little bit lower, but I don't run high estrogen anyway. It doesn't change my markers enough.
Instead of completely going off. And here's where I'm going, is that I don't ever want to experience that lag time of like no testosterone. You know what I mean? Yep. Versus, so that's where I'm literally saying the like lowest baseline that would bring you to like, let's say 500 nanograms or something, just a fairly normal level. I played with it a
little bit, but I got to the point where I'm like, you know what? It's literally 6 to 8 weeks, and it takes half that time before I even really notice that I'm starting to lose a little sex drive. And here's the funny thing. I know it's maybe TMI, but I want to say it because people might wonder, is your sex drive in the toilet? What happens is my sex drive is the best on TRT. Cycling, it's not bad, but it's better on TRT, which I think most people experience the same thing. When I come off, it's the same for the first 3, maybe 4 weeks. It's the last 3 to 4 weeks where I notice, okay, I'm not as interested. Now, I function just fine, and I'm cool with it, but I'm not chasing my wife around like I am the other 10 and a half months out of the year. It's more like, I don't know, I'm watching The Sopranos right now, and it's a pretty good episode. Or I do have to eat in 45 minutes, so it's that sort of thing. Want to prepare
for that.
And it only lasts 3-4 weeks. and then I'm back on, and it. And the first part of being on is fine. It's once those blood levels kind of level off, then it's it's not bad while I'm on. It's just the best when I'm on TRT. I've always found
I think
that.
most people would agree with that. Once you start introducing other compounds, I think,
yeah. And prep's a different animal because that's just your mind having so much on your brain and so many things to get done, not only with the prep, but then to balance all of the responsibilities that you have for your clients, the podcast, the articles, everything that has to get done in the day outside of your selfish prep work.
Yeah.
True.
What about upright rows? Somebody asked us, what do we think about them overall as an exercise?
Don't really love them. I can't remember last time I did them. I did use them back in the early 2000s as one of my DC exercises when I was training DC. But it was a very particular way, using a Smith machine and elbows over the bar. So I don't know. I just don't like them. But also my shoulders hurt all the time now, so I just wouldn't even try them now.
Yeah.
I have a version too. I think we're probably on the same. We have a parallel there. I won't do a barbell upright row, whether it be in a Smith or anything else. They don't feel even to me. What I do is I do an alternating dumbbell version, but I pull them wide, almost like I'm pulling them out at a V.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I can see that.
But it's one at a time so that I can get it higher and get a better contraction. Left, right, obviously, not one side at a time. I think I had them in the TRT bodybuilding DVD. And a lot of people said that they tried them and they really liked them. I use it as more of a finisher because it just kind of encapsulates a lot of the delt complex. But I'm still focused, like I always am for most of my delt work. It's rear delts and side delts. That's my focus because I'm so narrow shouldered and have such narrow clavicles. That's why I put a lot of gear in my shoulders too. To be honest, they get rounder and they fill out and they look better. So if I were ever to put synthol, it would be the back of my side delts and my rear delts because that rounds out. My wife is very good at giving shots. She's given shots for a long time, places I can't reach, and I want it very particular. I do what I call filling in the cracks. So those little fingers, if one is down a little bit, we're going in there on both sides.
No kidding.
You should have used that little anecdote in the last episode when we were talking about the last question of like, what does your significant other think about using gear?
Yeah,
my wife gives me my rear delt shots. We have a conversation
if I could get her to give me all my shots, she's very good at it. Oh. So to this day, I am not a fan of shots. I'm not one of those guys who goes, "Oh yeah, I'm so hardcore." I just literally wake up and go, "Oh God, I got to do shots."
I think that's all of us after a certain point. You know what I mean?
When you've taken 1,000 of them,
right?
You're just like, I got to put a needle in me today. Great.
And like that first shot could be like an Instagram, that bench chicken could do a video on that first shot. You go in the gym and you're instantly like, yeah. Skip, tell us a little bit about that, your lateral delt training. Because you've talked a little bit before about how you can kind of hit the front and the rear lateral delt. How does the workout look to do this?
I currently I'm training 5 days a week right now because it's too much work to do in 4 days. Not happy about it, but I got to have the energy. Thursdays are my shoulder day, and all it is really, it's a little bit of front, but I do overhead pressing or front pressing after chest on Mondays.
Yep.
And then I come back and I do essentially side and rear delts on Thursday, but I do literally almost 20 sets. I am bombing the shit out of them right now.
Holy crap. No kidding.
So, and I'm going to do some videos because I do a couple things that are a little bit different that people will argue about, and I can't wait to do it. But my opener is usually where I sit at a cable, isolateral cable, and I cross them. So they're about shoulder width apart, and this is going to be hard to explain, but the pulley handles, and the pulleys and the handles are pretty much in front of my chest, but they're angled down just a little bit. And I pull out into the side for a side delt, and I know people will be like, that's a rear delt movement, and it's not. It has a little bit of rear delt in it, but it's predominantly side delt. I open with those. They're very strict, but it's more back. It's more backing up. Here we go, like this. So the movement is more here. It's hard to do because
hold on just a second. Hold on a second. I'm going to take me and Andrew away here.
Oh, okay.
All right,
there you go. Yeah. So it's here and it's down in here. So the pulleys start here and it's here. You'd have to see it from the side too because the angle is more like this.
Yeah, okay. Right? So there's like a little bit up. There's some up happening in it.
Right. So what I'm doing is, and the reason I do this is because I want to hit the back part of my side delt. Most people have very, very strong the front part of their side delt, still the side delt, but the front part of their side delt is the strongest because they do shitty, horrible side laterals and they don't have elbow position correct and dumbbell position, things like that. So another thing I'll do is I'll do them with dumbbells sometimes. I'll lean over slightly and stay in that position and pull up for the side delt. It's more isolative to me, and it just plain feels better. But I open with those. Then I go to some version of a side dumbbell lateral. It might be lying into a high incline bench because then I can't cheat. It may be alternating. It may be seated, but it's some type of dumbbell. Then I go to what is really working well for me because I do them consistently. And this is another argument that people will say it's not true. Smith press behind neck, where the bar comes down to essentially my nose, but it's obviously behind my head, and then with full lockout. And the argument is, it's a front delt exercise. And it's just not if done correct. There is front delt involvement. You can't isolate specifically one head of the deltoid, but the primary movement is coming from the side delt, especially when I had pre-exhausted them with 2 exercises of side laterals already. Sure. After that, I go to leaning forward, front dumbbell raises, relatively controlled, but they're not too narrow. And I don't, let me do this. I don't have a neutral grip, so I'm not rotating the shoulder internally. I'm keeping it here. So it's a lot of side delt with a little bit of front thrown in just to, stabilize and help out. There'll be a little bit of blood in there, but it's still frying my side delts. Then I go to the alternating upright dumbbell rows. Yep, and then I finish with rear laterals. And
that's ends a lot of shoulders.
It's a lot. It's a lot. I just literally fry them. And the cool thing is they're responding really well. And it blows my mind because if I did that with legs, I'd be overtrained in 3 weeks. If I did it with chest, guarantee. It's like once I get over 12 working sets for chest, I start regressing. It's like a magic number or something. Yep. So it's just
I would
very
even say
bizarre.
9 sometimes.
Yeah, I know. I've been down, and I've made great progress on only 8.
Yeah.
And then you just feel guilty. It's like, I could be doing more work here. But then it's like I'm progressing versus being stable or regressing. And I don't have any shoulder issues. I don't have any rotator cuff issues. I have much more flexibility and mobility through my shoulders now that I'm doing more work. I actually thought I'd end up overtrained. Mm-hmm. And I'd have to pull back. And I'm like, this is just working really, really well. No inflammation, nothing. So I'm gonna keep rocking it.
The only time I do upright rows is pre-contest, like in backstage with a band, because it pumps up my traps, pumps up my shoulders, pumps up my biceps too. Like I get a good bicep pump with that and knock out like 15, 20 of those, and that's that exercise for me where all of a sudden like everything up top just lights up.
Blows up.
Yeah. So maybe I might do it like in the gym when I'm really peeled, just for my own, gratification in the mirror. That's it. We got a bunch more though. Let's see what else we have here. I was so interested in listening to Skip's training, which that is a lot. That is way more delts than I've done. Okay. So of course we got a master on test question. Banding movements. When practical, equally effective, but is it generally more safe?
I'll just go on record and say I don't ban shit. Nothing.
Is it generally more safe?
Yeah, you know how people say like the hack squat? Well, it helps it's safer on the knees, that kind of thing. Because you're deloading in the most vulnerable position at the bottom.
Yeah, but it's not the most vulnerable position mechanically. 2/3 of the way up is technically the most vulnerable position for the knee, the articular cartilage and everything.
The hardest point. The hardest point then.
No, but the most vulnerable for knee damage. Everybody thinks that for some reason we all think or have thought in the industry that deep stretch of the knee is the worst, unless there's already a vulnerability there. It's not. That's not the worst position to be in. And if Coach Cassim hears this, hopefully he backs me up, because it ain't in the bottom position.
I don't know if it's safer though. Okay, when you are someone who's already very strong and very experienced, and you're using one band, and you're taking a little off the top at the bottom, that's one thing. When you're someone that hack squats 4 plates and you're using 2 of the Elite FES thick gray bands, I think you're opening yourself up to injury more so, because what happens that one day that you do your first rep and you forget to put 3 or 4 bands on there, and you're using way more than you thought than you think you are, or the actual weight is way heavier in actuality than what you think you were doing, and I think that could open yourself up to injury. So I don't know if I know someone's probably looking for an answer like, oh, it saves the joints, or it does this because it adds more tension. I don't think there's a difference really. I think the injury risk is about the same. How about instead of reverse banding, then banding to make it? That's what I was famous for. You know what I'm saying? Always banding like a hack squat when I didn't want to use. When I got to a point where I was using 10 plates on a hack squat aside, I was like, this is kind of getting crazy. So I started banding from the bottom, starting back over with 8 until I got back up to 10 again, and I also made sure that like I took those sets to failure, but I didn't go like, I wasn't doing anything beyond failure. I wasn't doing forced reps or anything like that because the weight was so heavy that the risk was just starting to outweigh the reward opportunity, I guess you could say. But I think banding over reverse banding is a great place for people to start. And I can see that. If I ran out of plates on a machine ever, I could see doing that. I have not ever had that problem. Yeah. And never will.
I like also banding the hammer strength machine. Like with a short band, you could like a hammer strength press. I didn't finish my statement. Banding a hammer strength press. I like that because you get stronger at that lockout. You know what I mean? You can add more weight that way.
Yeah. I think what you're doing though is you're training your strength curve when you do that, right? Like, because what are you doing when you're banding? You're trying to use F equals ma, right? Force equals mass times acceleration. Well, if you're accelerating at the same rate, but the apparent mass from here to here is going up, well, now you've increased force on the other side of the equation. So I could see that as being a great exercise or a great technique to increase force potential or actual force being used. Yeah.
We did reverse bands on squats before, and I overloaded that to the point where I could tell like I was using heavier weight than I would have been able to use otherwise at one point. And I could tell like as you're coming up and the bands are coming off, there's kind of like a moment, you know what I mean? Like I couldn't do 4 plates. I could do 3 plates. I could do higher than 3 plates, but I couldn't do 4. But with a band, I could do 4, and it would begin deloading as it was getting heavier, and it would deload a good amount out of the hole, but I could handle the rest. And I did get stronger from doing that. But there was definitely like some iffy moments. And after that, I went to just using really light, like the Elite red micro bands. I liked that. And that was like just a little bit. You could go like a little bit heavier than you would have otherwise,
Put it this way, because I've done tons of phases using bands, chains, experimenting with like 5-3-1 training way back in the day, using them, incorporating them into bodybuilding style training. I don't think there's an overall benefit over using just straight weight and just forcing yourself to get stronger using
for bodybuilding.
For body and improving your physique. With just using bodybuilding training techniques without the bands or chains or other accommodating resistance type stuff.
It would have been like 2012 when John Meadows was doing band stuff, and then so we started doing band stuff. Sure. And it was fun, like, because it was different, even like
that's what it is,
like changing the strength curve of a machine, like that was fun just because it's like, well, we've done this leg extension every leg day for the past 5 years. Like, let's put a band on it now,
I mean, it does feel a little different, right? I mean, I've banded everything from leg extensions to leg curls, seated and I've done chained leg extensions, chained leg curls. I mean, those are fun, but again, because it's different,
right.
It's a different challenge. But at the end of the day, I don't think it put on any more muscle than just traditional free weight machine without the bands.
Yeah, and I think it's important that people hear that like we've done a lot of bands, because I think that if we just give the quick answer of like, nah, you don't need it, then there's kind of like the question of like, oh, these guys haven't done bands before, they don't know much about it.
That's a good point.
You know what I mean?
Tried them. I just hate them. It's way too much work, and I don't see the benefit. That's the only reason. I'm like, I got to lug these chains around, then I got to hook them up. This is incredibly laborious work here.
We got our chains stolen once.
If I thought there was a benefit to it, I don't think there's a couple, like the banded pullover, but then you're going to trip people. It's just, you got to have the bench perfectly aligned, getting underneath it and getting set. You got to have somebody help you. It's just a giant pain in the ass.
Whenever I've done a banded pullover, I've shot videos of that, and every time there's somebody who's like, oh, that band is gonna snap.
Yeah,
every time.
You know what, actually, this feels really friggin' good. Before my gym, any of the gyms I went to had like belt squats, right? So what I would do is I'd get two platforms or two benches, right, and set it up in front of a dip station with the two arms so I could just hold on, and then I'd wear a belt and attach multiple levels of chains, like to the point where we had to have 300 pounds of chain on at one point, like we added every chain, and we would do like these perfect chest up, get down, and then explode out of the bottom reps. And I gotta say, and then we would superset them with lunges, like no weight. I just remember, like, man, my quads, when I get done those, would feel amazing. Like, it's totally spent, but just like bursting at the seams fullness. I do. Now, I'm not saying that you should be doing this every week or even you should do it, but it did feel really friggin' cool. And I think it did actually help. I'll go back on my previous statement. It did help with some growth during that phase. So use them intermittently, but don't think that you're going to go in every week, bring in your bands and chains and stuff and think that that's like the answer to straight progress.
Yeah, I like to change the change the cadence of an exercise. So if we were to say take like the leg press maybe, and say maybe for say 6 weeks I'm going to do a complete dead stop at the bottom, but it's like an ISO hold dead stop, and that's going to be the thing that I do here, and I'm going to keep challenging that until I kind of get burnt out of it and I need something new. So for me, bands would be like, I'm going to put a band on this for the next 6 weeks, to give me that I'm doing the same exercise, but it's like now I'm still staying interested in some way. I'm doing something that's keeping my brain. So I like them in that way. Yeah. You know what I mean? That it's like, it's something that's like keeping me occupied, I
can agree with that. And the challenge and maybe just the feel of the exercise is slightly different.
Yeah. And I like kind of get off on that. Like, now it's going to feel like this, and this is going to be, for the next month or whatever, this is going to be what I'm doing. And, and I enjoy that. You know what I mean? I enjoy just those the nuances, like even if it's like a dead stop, like the nuances of like just holding that and
3-second negatives.
Yeah, exactly. That kind of thing. All right. So we still had a bunch more. I don't really know about this one. I don't know what kind of answers you guys are going to have. I don't know where this guy's living. He says, what's the best home system for filling gallon jugs other than using tap water? My thought was a well, but if you had a well,
I think you should just put your jugs up on the roof and like wait for it to rain.
Yeah.
Giant palm leaves.
Yeah, there you go. Jug on the end of each palm leaf.
Bottom of the gutter. What are those called? Or something? Yeah, at your house. Yeah, just do that and let the rainwater and the squirrel shit and everything else.
I just go out to my pool. I go out to my pool and I fill it right up, and then it tastes a little bleachy, but
the chlorine is okay. It helps to keep the water,
cleans out the inside.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if there's going to be another option outside of a faucet, maybe a garden hose. I don't see anything.
Use your garden hose. Yeah.
Was it talking about one of those? And I love the name when I first saw it. The Primo water. They come in like the 5-gallon jugs, and you have a little. Is he talking about getting one of those?
Oh.
So you could just buy them already filled, and then they'd come to your house and they pick up the empty jugs and fill them back up again. Yeah. I don't want to give the guy a hard time, but it doesn't strike me as filling up gallon jugs being incredibly laborious.
Bodybuilders are lazy.
Yeah, I'm pretty lazy too.
Maybe he doesn't want to drink his tap water. I don't know.
Then you just need to have your water delivered to your home.
Or you can get one of those pieces you can attach under your drain to the pipe coming in,
like the reverse osmosis.
Yeah, exactly. Yep, that's what I meant to. Yeah,
yeah. We had, when we were in Australia, the last place we stayed at had we went to this off the grid cabin. Okay, we stayed there for like 4 days. It was so cool. And it was in this like old rainforest area in the mountains, and the water was filtered and it came off the roof. So the roof water went through a whole filtration system, and that was the water we used for showering, for drinking, and for washing our stuff. We were there during a drought, so like showers had to be like 2 minutes or less. Mm-hmm. But I'm going to tell you what, I was kind of like weirded out to drink water that I knew came off the roof. It was literally, I have never had water that was that good in my life. It was like the best water ever.
Best water I ever had was at our last house in Colorado at 9,000 feet, because our well was massive.
You guys had a well?
Yeah, we had a well. I could fill up the 450-gallon hot tub and not even be close to running out of water.
That's awesome.
Jeez.
And water at that elevation, man, was it good. And totally free.
Oh, man, that's amazing.
Yep.
Did that, like, is there any kind of upkeep to that? Because you're off the grid as far as water is concerned then. Is there any kind of, like, you got to have, like, I've never had well water before. Not as far as
I know. We were there for only 2 years before we moved to Florida, but there was never any. It's literally filtered by the rock, because at that elevation, there's a lot of rock. I mean, you try to dig posts for your not patio, but like the walk around deck for the hot tub. Yeah. That's a job. That's
a lot of digging, excavating.
And that rock, let me tell you, it is unforgiving. Was a very difficult job. But that's how it's filtered at those elevations. It just ends up running through all that rock, and it's some super clean water.
I could imagine. I remember, Skip, you used to have a lot of problems with your hot tub filter or your hot tub cover. If anybody watched the old BSGs, Skip would be sitting there and be like, "That hot tub cover came off again."
Yeah, we had to go lowbrow and put 2 cinder blocks on the edge, because the wind, when you're at that type of elevation, and especially because we were kind of in a valley, the windows would whistle. It was incredibly windy up there, and of course they were high grade, high quality windows, but they would whistle and they would flex from the wind.
All right. Hey, so let's see if we can so we've talked about this before. We did a whole podcast on this before. Donnie said, have you guys, or could you guys do a section on breaking down insulin use and all the specifics around it? It gets talked about a lot, but I've never heard you guys break it down. We did like didn't we do a whole thing on that?
We've done like 3 over the last year, I believe.
I thought so. Derek hadn't heard it either, though. He says ×2 for an insulin breakdown, particularly around a weak body part. Maybe we should save that and do that as a lead topic for our next episode if we have multiple people asking.
Yeah, we can do another one, but if he wants to get caught up, I would go on the Think Big page and under the search function, just type in carbs, because I know we went into pretty good detail on it on the carbohydrate source episode that you and me, Scott, did.
Oh, yeah.
We only did, Scott, when Skip was absent. But
that was the best episode ever.
Yeah. But then the 3 of us also did another episode about it maybe 4 or 5 months after that, too. So
I thought we all did.
Yeah. So
we did that intra-workout carb one, and I don't think we directly talked about insulin, but we might have been like,
no, where
you take your? Did we? Okay.
I gave like an exact. Oh
yeah, you did.
Yeah. Because then I also had people like afterwards sending me like tons of messages. I'm like, well, what about this scenario? Or what about? I'm like, still applies to be the same, guys. It still applies the same. You know.
Yeah.
So
Guys, if you've been hanging with us this long and you haven't subscribed, then let me encourage you to. You know you want to if you've been watching the show this long. We have several bodybuilding podcasts that come out each week. As I mentioned at the beginning, Skip, Andrew, and I have been coaching for a long time now. Skip's been coaching for the longest of all of us, and we're here to just freely share our education with you guys. So we'd love to have you along. Plus, it's a huge help for you guys to subscribe on YouTube. Like, it is a huge help to help us build this thing up and to be able to continue putting these shows out the way we do.
Don't go out without my word.
No, I wasn't going out yet. But I wanted to make sure I threw that in there, though, because I forget to encourage people to subscribe. It's like there's like 70% of the people who watch our show are subscribed, but there's like a whole 30% that aren't, and we'd love to have you guys along with us. So yeah, Skip, what's your word of the week here?
Ubiquitous.
Oh, that's
and
a good one. It sounds
like, when am I going to use that? I was born and raised in Battle Creek, Michigan, and if anybody doesn't know, that's the cereal capital of the world because Kellogg's headquarters, Post, General Mills, basically all your cereal at least originated in Battle Creek and was there for years. Something that was cool during the summer was the days that they made Fruit Loops. The entire city would smell like Fruit Loops.
You're kidding.
So ubiquitous means everywhere. So the smell of Fruit Loops was ubiquitous in Battle Creek on summer nights, and it didn't matter where you were. You were at the ballpark up north by where we lived, or you were downtown. You didn't have to be near the factory. It was everywhere. So ubiquitous is just something that is everywhere. It can be love, it can be something tangible, intangible, but ubiquitous is just something that's everywhere.
So like trend use.
Trend use is ubiquitous in the bodybuilding industry, yes.
Yes, and TikTok now, and TikTok.
Yeah, that too. Yeah.
You guys aren't on TikTok, are you?
No, we need to start one, though. We need to start a TikTok.
I have one, but I don't use it. It's too addicting. There's so much funny, entertaining stuff there that I can't go there. I will sit there for 2 hours.
Don't go on YouTube Shorts then either.
Is that right?
Oh yeah. The
very,
shorts,
very entertaining.
Yeah, I think it's making me dumber too. You know, dumber is not really a word, is it? So it's perfect.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Is it? Okay.
I'm dumber? Sure.
Oh yeah, I guess it is. So
you guys need to read a book.
So yeah, if I get online in the morning to like check the stats and start uploading, they'll just want me to. They encourage me to look at a YouTube short, and then you watch one, and then you flick and go to another, and flick and go to another. Before you know, it's been 20 minutes. I'm like, what did I even see? What's going on?
I want those 20 minutes back.
Yeah, but there's 5 products I want to buy now. I don't know why. Yeah, I got rid of TikTok. That said, I'm gonna get it back. Because with all the YouTube shorts we're doing, those things, it's all the same content. I could just put it all up on YouTube or on TikTok as well. So there's that. You know, it was John Meadows who told us about TikTok before it even was around. I don't know if you remember that, Andrew. He went to
he told me about it.
He went to a Gary Vee thing. And
but then I started seeing some of the stuff about them and the CCP, and like I was like, John, man, I wouldn't get involved with this.
Yeah,
I still am not going to get involved with it.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you in a lot of ways. I don't know if I'm a fan, but that said, I want to grow the show, so we're probably going to go to TikTok. I just haven't done it yet.
That's what CCP is banking on. Like, oh, this guy just wants to build his channel up, and all these kids want to get these views.
It was though John that told me about it. He was like, I went to go to a Gary Vee talk. And he was like, and I came back, and he said, and he tells me there's this new platform called TikTok, and it's gonna be big.
That's what he said. Yeah, I remember you saying.
You know that John had no idea what Instagram was, and I set up his first one for him, and I was posting all his pictures for the first like month until he's like, I got 40,000 followers already. He's like, put my email in. Like, I want to take control of that now.
That's funny. Yeah, I love his old YouTube stuff. I still will go back because like I want somebody to do like a John Meadows 6-way for shoulders. Which Skip, do you ever do those?
No, I'm a straight set. I don't want to say I'm boring, but I don't get into that type of the giant set super set. To me, it's opening a Pandora's box, and then I can't gauge the volume, and it makes me anxious.
I'll show it to you. And I'm going to find the old one, Andrew, like the original one.
Yeah.
Here it is. Hold on a second, guys. I'm going to bring this up. Give me just a minute. Of course, it's good. He's got that one monetized on the channel. You guys can go over to Mountain Dog YouTube channel. Give me just a second here. We're going to go to the original. I have to blow this up. And expand this. Here's the John Meadows 6-way. Let's see. Come back here. I got to bring you guys in. Come on. Come on. This isn't working for me. There we go. Here's the John Meadows 6-way. This is his old video, like before he built the channel as to what it was. He just had these exercises on here of like things he did.
He wanted to use it as a catalog to show his clients.
Yeah.
Simple as that.
Guess we don't need the sound for it.
These are killer.
Oh, they're brutal, man.
Mm-hmm.
And they light up my front delts better than just doing like a traditional front delt raise. Front delt raises always bother my bicep tendon, but I can do these without a problem.
Nope, never even seen him.
And this is, what does he have? How much weight is that? Is that a 7.5?
Like maybe.
Yes, I think
they're light. You don't need much.
You can even do like a set of 20 with a 2.5 pound plate in your hand, you know?
We did a drop set of those one times with like 10 5s, 2.5s, and then just moving your arms up and down for side laterals was like, it was like one set.
Yeah.
It was ridiculous.
Yeah. I liked them as like at the end of the workout kind of thing.
Same.
Gotcha.
Yep, same. Yep.
Yeah. Either that or maybe a little bit heavier at the beginning, one of the two.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Anything else, Andrew? Anything we got here?
I think we got to wrap it up. I know someone's hungry.
All right. I got to go.
Let's run. We got to get Skip his gains, guys. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Blood, Sweat, and Gear. You can go to Bodyberry to reach out to bodyberry.com to reach out to Andrew, teamskip.com to reach out to Skip, mcnallydiets@gmail.com to reach out to me, and of course, truenutrition.com. Use our code THINK over there, supplementsource.ca, and leave us questions for the next show. Thank you to everybody from Patreon. I'll be starting up a new thread over there to take new Patreon questions, guys, and we will see you soon. Thanks, guys, everybody in the live stream.